Good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us in the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee or tea or your water if it's my case, and sit back and enjoy your daily energy report with Astrology-Human design. And as you can see, I'm not alone this morning. We have a special guest. I've been excited for 2 weeks to introduce you to this young lady. Her name is Maxine Taylor. And Maxine, I'm going to actually read some of your bio because I think you did an excellent job writing it. Maxine Taylor is a pioneer in the astrological community. She began studying astrology in 1966. Now, that's before a lot of you out there were even born. In 1969, she became not only Georgia's first licensed astrologer, but America's first licensed astrologer. She continued to make history by spearheading the establishment of the Atlanta Board of Astrology Examiners. Maxine was CNN's on-air astrologer in the 1980s. I can't even believe they had one of those, but that's awesome. And appeared as a guest on The Larry King Show. She has been featured on all major TV networks and both national and international news publications. Maxine serves on the board of directors of the American Federation of Astrologers. She is the author of The Stargazer's Motherlode and the Amazon #1 bestsellers Move Into the Magic, the Earthbound trilogy, and Now That I've Cast It, What Do I Do With It? She is also the host of her own YouTube channel, Maxine Taylor Astrologer. Maxine will be speaking at the UAC, which is the United Astrology Conference in Chicago, this coming May. Welcome, Maxine. I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us this early in the morning.
I am so thrilled to be here with you. I have looked forward to doing a face-to-face with you ever since we talked the other day, and you and I could talk for days.
We could, because we are cut from the same cloth. I think I shared with all my listeners that you are a fellow Gemini, so that here we are today with possibly 4 of us on air, not just the 2 of us, as there's usually 2 rolled into one with Gemini energy. So, why don't you, I know I read your bio and all of that's pretty awesome, but tell us who the real Maxine is. What do you love? What do you do in your spare time? How did you come across astrology, and what made you go, God, I've got to be an astrologer?
Okay, let me give you the Aries version, or we'll be here for a week.
Okay.
I moved to Atlanta in 1966 and my life totally changed. I had left my family at home, my mother, my father, my sister, and I was on my own. And a week later, I found myself on a beautiful houseboat in the middle of Lake Lanier. It was quite lovely. And on that very same houseboat was a much older lady who had studied astrology for years. Now, pause. I never acknowledged astrology when I was younger. My mother used to bring a fortune teller in, a card reader, and I gave her a hard time because I didn't think anybody in their right mind would be interested in that sort of thing. Well, I was wrong about that. When I got to Atlanta and I'm on the houseboat, she told me all about myself based on my birth sign. And that absolutely opened my eyes. So I bought one of those little dippy little books that you get at the checkout counter that says, here's your forecast for the whole year.
Wasn't that like a Dell book, or, the little Dell right at the checkout counters? Yeah.
Yes.
I remember seeing those.
Remember those? And when I moved to Atlanta, I had been teaching in Miami for 2 years and I had no money. And I was living hand to mouth. I had a temporary job just to pay the bills. And in that book, it said on the 18th of August, all your financial problems will be solved. You know where this is going.
Uh-huh.
On the 18th of August, I got my $800 retirement check from Dade County, Florida Board of Education. Back in 1966, $800 was like $8,000, and all my financial problems were solved. And from then on, well, there's nothing worse than a convert. And so I started studying. And when I got a job teaching, of course, and the more I studied, the more it just came to me. that I wanted to practice astrology. Well, astrology was considered fortune telling back then. It still is, probably all over the United States. And to get a license to practice astrology in some areas, it's glomped under the miscellaneous category because it's still considered fortune telling. So I knew I had to legalize astrology. Now, when I say I had to, I took it upon myself, but I realized as my spiritual studies grew that it wasn't me. I was the vehicle through which it happened. And so I got a hearing. I went to the board of the, no, this is a little later. I went to the business license division of Cobb County, Georgia, which is the heart. It was really very old country back then. And I told everybody I'm going to legalize astrology. And they said, you'll never do it in Cobb County. And my response was, oh yeah, watch me.
Watch me.
And so I sat there for weeks and weeks and weeks with my knitting, waiting for the guy in charge of business license to say, yes, we've got a positive response. And he didn't do that. And finally, it occurred to me, I was wasting my time sitting there. So I went and knocked on the door of the Cobb County Commissioner, the head of the Cobb County Commission. And his name was Ernest Barrett. And for those of you who know Atlanta, there's a parkway named after him called Ernest Barrett Parkway. I told him I wanted a hearing with the commissioners. He said, we're meeting on Tuesday. Will you be there? I said, absolutely. I showed up. My knees were knocking.
I can imagine.
I was 23 years old. I was scared to death. But as a teacher, I was prepared to speak publicly. And long story short, I told them all about themselves. There were like 12 or 13 county commissioners sitting up on a dais. It was like I was in the Supreme Court. And they took astrology off the books as fortune telling. By the way, the fortune telling license was $1,500 at that time, which is like $15,000, and which was an insult, of course. And they reduced it to $100 a year. This was November, and they gave me the license for $10. And I became the first licensed astrologer, not just in Georgia, but in the country.
That's amazing, because I've never heard of having to be licensed as an astrologer. When I got my business license, there wasn't even a category for it. I was just consulting, and no one asked me any questions about it. To me, this is just like unbelievably crazy that even existed at that time and place. But, again, you're in the deep South, so a very religious area of the country. And perhaps that, was their way of keeping the fortune tellers down to a minimum.
It was absolutely, you're absolutely right. And so I realized I had been studying with a group of older ladies who knew astrology very well. So I was teaching astrology in my living room to my high school students, one of whom had a grandmother who had studied astrology and a father in the Georgia House of Representatives. And I wanted to have a bill introduced into the House of Representatives to legalize it in Atlanta for this group of ladies. And so my darling student, Jody, said, I'll tell my father. And he didn't have a choice. His mother studied it. His daughter was studying it. He had a bill introduced, it legalized it in Atlanta. Atlanta became the first city in the country to legalize the practice of astrology. Well, then we realized anybody could come in and claim to be an astrologer, which they can today, by the way. And so I spearheaded the movement to establish the Atlanta Board of Astrology Examiners to test and license wannabe astrologers. That's still around. Fast forward to today. We have the internet. And as long as you practice on the internet, nobody comes to your door. So you do not need a license to practice. And so we have I opened the door to all the astrologers who are now practicing, so to speak. And when I say I did, it's not me. I was the vehicle. And interestingly enough, I don't need a license to practice either. So
After all that work.
America's first licensed astrologer was denied a license to practice a few years back. And when they rescinded the law in Cobb County. And when I found out that it was fine to practice on the internet, I said, tally ho. And
now, why did they rescind the law?
Oh, probably greed, because they went back to a fortune-telling license for $1,500 and a piece of the action. So they wanted not just $1,500, but they wanted a cut. I would say greed, along with
my goodness,
old-time religion.
Oh my goodness. So Maxine, because I know my listeners out there are probably asking this same question to themselves, where in your personal astrology chart is this indicated? That you would create this kind of a movement?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, couple of places. I have Uranus conjunct the Sun conjunct Saturn, but on the midheaven,
powerful.
Venus and Jupiter. So I have fame and recognition, and Jupiter is truth and Venus is love. And so wherever I went, if I were at a party and there was somebody famous or well-known there, I would literally bump into them. I've done this time and time again. I am friendly with a lot of movers and shakers.
Nice.
I love to introduce people to other people. Libra rising, I'm the go-between. So I am the medium, the go-between, between people and things and places. So
that's awesome.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And I think anybody with strong Aquarius or Uranus in their birth chart is going to be led to all of the metaphysical sciences. I call them the magical sciences. Because we're so weird.
Magic is my favorite word. Magical and mystical, two of my favorite words. And I swear I tell my listeners all the time about the magical things that happen in my life, because I want them to know that the world is magic, right? That there's so much fun stuff that happens right before our very eyes, and we sometimes miss it, right? We can miss it if we're not tuning in. So now let's take it forward a little bit, right? So mid-60s, you start this movement. So what happens next? How do you become an on-air astrologer for CNN? And how do you end up on the Larry King show? Tell us, fill in that gap for us.
Okay. Well, when you're the first astrologer ever allowed to practice, you get a lot of recognition. First, you prime the pump, and there's all kind of interesting people who show up at your doorstep. And because I meet people all the time who are in important slots in our world, one of my friends said she worked at CNN when they first began, and she gave somebody in charge my video that I had done, and they invited me to be their on-air astrologer. Now, I wasn't paid for it, but that was perfectly fine with me. But the joke was that they wanted me to do political forecasts. And at the time, I never watched the news. I never read the newspaper because it was too negative. So every political forecast I gave was based only on astrology. And of course, we know how accurate astrology is. So yeah. I look pretty good.
You look like a magician.
Like a magician. So I was very, very honored, and I got a great deal of recognition. And since Larry King was on CNN, one of the big producers of the show that I was on said, we'd like to put you on the Larry King show. And I said, I'd love to be on his show. He was a lovely, and I'm sure still is, a lovely gentleman, truly kind to his guests. And so they flew me into Washington, D.C., which is where he had his headquarters at the time. And of course, this was pre-internet. So people would fly you to different places in the country to give talks to big organizations. I did workshops for Federated Department Stores on astrology. I still do the same workshops. When I give a reading, when I do somebody's forecast, I give them a very simplified version of their chart with each planet in a different color, and I explain it to them. So that opened the door for me simplifying astrology for the world.
Awesome.
And then I was involved, even before I legalized astrology, in the spiritual metaphysical field. And a group of us got together to organize the Atlanta Institute of Metaphysics. It was led by an Episcopal priest, and we were kind of the core group. And from there, I met all kinds of strange people. And I found my own.
Your like-mindedness.
Thank you. My like-mindedness. And then I wrote books. And when the internet came about, of course, we know there was a huge explosion because back in 1966, when we would cast a horoscope, we had to do it by hand.
Right. And that would take a while.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
I never in my life had to do that, right? By the time I was doing astrology, it was already the internet age. And programs did it all for me.
You're so blessed. You and all the new kids on the block are so blessed. If I had to cast a horoscope by hand, I could. And that's a blessing. So I was doing charts for people. When I did my Federated Department Stores workshops, I had 150 people in the audience. I would cast 150 charts by hand, put them in simplified form, and go from there.
I can't even imagine having to do that.
It was a lot of work, but that's how we did it. I used to call astrology the kitchen table science because you kept it very quiet. When I was teaching astrology to my high school students, they had astrology books, and they'd stop me in the halls to ask questions. And I said, cover it in brown paper. We're just flying under the radar, so to speak.
So you were teaching astrology to high school students in Atlanta.
In the evening in my home, I got permission slips from their parents.
Gotcha. Okay.
And their parents had to drive them to my house and pick them up and drive them back. And I said, this is not related to their public education, etc. But there are a group of people out there now who learned astrology when they were teenagers.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Lovely, lovely work that you're doing there. Fast forwarding, out of the dark ages, which, I'm not even sure how it is that astrology ended up kind of in the dark anyway, because it was always a science that was very much rewarded and revered, right? In the old ages, if you didn't know astrology and you were a scientist, you weren't worth your salt.
That's true.
So it's interesting how it ended up relegated to the dark, to the fortune-telling sort of genre in business. And then
what happens when you have something that's powerful that people cannot control? They put you down. Isn't that what has happened to women? We
Absolutely.
are powerful. We cannot be controlled. Where the Me Too movement is alive and well. And
definitely.
And so it was religion that subjugated anything that took power away from them.
From the power mongers, power to the people. And they didn't like that idea. That's absolutely true. So you were talking about classes and teaching classes to high school students and what have you, and classes to people in stores. And you have a class that you're doing called Take Back Your Life and Take Back Your Money, Health, Sexuality, Career, etc. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And are you having another class about that soon?
I would love to talk to you about that. My passion in astrology, and I wrote a book on this called Hidden Messages, which is in my compilation, The Stargazer's Motherlode. My passion is to help astrologers and everybody else read their parental programming in the chart. You know, sun is daddy's message, moon is mommy's message, Pluto is the matriarch, Saturn is the should and ought to authority figure. The rulers of the 4th and 10th represent the parents, and the aspects to them tell you so much about the parents and the programming. And once we know our programming, we can see the movie, which is the story of our life that plays like Groundhog Day over and 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 over, and people don't see it. And so I have a technique that helps you step by step release that programming. I've studied this for decades, and now I'm offering it online. I didn't want to do it online. I like doing it in person. But you and I talked about the fact that, you know, it's a computer age.
The reality of the world is totally different now.
It really is. And so I have a 3-hour class that helps you take back your life. This is for the person who really is awakening and realizes that they're doing the same thing over and over again, that they are controlled, that they are victims. This gets rid of the victim role. And so I offer that one-on-one online at any time. It's on my the first page of my website, MaxineTaylor.com. It's right there, Take Back Your Life. Then I see that there are subsets. Money. We know how important that is to us here on the earth plane. Sex, Me Too movement, my word, look what's happening now. And I have discovered something that I share I've never seen written anywhere. I offer that, I share it in my Take Back Your Sexuality, Take Back Your Power, because sexuality, the sexual power is the true creative source of power. And I do this with women. I'm a woman. I can only identify with women.
Absolutely.
And so there's a powerful piece that happens to a lot of women that they don't even know happened to them. So I include that. Your health, your career, it all goes back to what you were programmed for as a child. And as I'm sitting here, I'm pointing to the 12th house.
The place of my son.
Well, the spirit plane, how gorgeous. How gorgeous for you. So that's what I do. And I adore that because it transforms you. Then you have to work it. You have to be aware of it. So I don't leave you dangling. I'm there anytime one of my students needs me.
So are you teaching this class live, or is it like a Udemy or something where you go and you grab the components? No, it's live.
If you and I sit here as you and I are doing, so that the student gets 100% of my time. And I carry them through their childhood. What I do, if you were having therapy, for example, and I say this not because I've had therapy, I haven't, but many of my students have, they said it's taken them years to get what they got in 3 hours with me.
That's so cool.
Because I'm my guinea pig. I'm my main guinea pig, so I know it works.
Yay for the guinea pigs. So when is your next class going to take place?
Whenever anybody contacts me, I set up a time because it is truly designed for the student. I do it during the morning, late morning hours when I'm caffeinated and lucid and awake. Other than that, because I do it with people all over the world, and sometimes there's a 14-hour difference.
Yeah.
So I do have to do some in the evening. But other than that, it's designed. This is for the person who is truly ready to end their old pattern. Now, the pattern is visible in the birth chart. And this is my specialty. What I've seen, and maybe you have too, is that most people really don't want to solve their problems. They just want to live comfortably within them. They want their husband to change, or their child to change, or their money to change, or whatever. They want to They want a magic pill that takes the weight off of them.
Tell me my life purpose.
Oh, life purpose. Well, and let me tell you, I can help people find their life's mission.
Mm-hmm.
In one session, takes about 15 minutes, blows you out of the frame. Because when you know that, you're able to put everything like dominoes falls into place. The things that you thought were so important aren't, and you can resolve them. But you have to know what your mission is.
Yes, you do.
And a lot of people do. And the problem we have, even if we know our mission, is we get our button punched, our story button. We let go of the mission and we're back in our story. And I show my students how to get out of the story.
Isn't that funny? Because I find myself talking about this all the time in the morning. We're talking about our story. And, you know, even though I know better, I find myself sometimes going back to my story. It's so annoying. The difference that is impacting my life now, though, is I know when I'm doing it.
Bravo. Well, I do too.
Uh-huh.
I'm not up on Mount Olympus. I'm right here with everybody else in an earthbound body. And the difference is that we know it. Also,
yeah,
we do it in layers, like the layers of the onion. We don't get it all at once, because if we did, it'd blow it. We would drop friends, drop spouses, leave the planet. We would. It has to be done on a with everybody's at everybody's personal speed, so we can assimilate it into our lives. Then if we want to shoot our husband, our kids, or whatever, then
nobody go out there and shoot your husband or your kids.
It's a little Gemini humor, friends.
Exactly. It's humor, definitely not for real.
Right.
So Maxine, in the interest of time, I want to go forward a little bit, because one of the things that really intrigued me about you is this star matrix healing modality that you have, or that you tell us about it. I don't even know, is it something you perform? Is it something you're teaching? Tell us about the star matrix healing.
I was at a matrix energetic seminar, and I saw the instructor. It wasn't Richard Bartlett, it was his daughter, Justice, walk somebody through a circle. And I thought, I can do that. And when I left the seminar, I came home to Atlanta, and I had a client, and I thought, I'm getting visions, and I'm not sure what they are, but I'm going to share them, even if she thinks I'm crazy. Long story short, what I was getting was so accurate. And I walked her around my living room, and she wanted to be a teacher, but she didn't know what to teach. And I walked her and stopped at the third house, which of course is teaching and communicating. And I said, well, you've been studying Abraham Hicks. Why don't you teach that? When she left, I thought, I want to do that with me. And I went up to the midheaven, which is
10th house,
right at my window. I mean, I still didn't realize I had a zodiac that I was walking. And what I've done since is I don't walk a zodiac, but I'm led to the house that I need to focus on. And I don't even talk astrology with it. When I'm led to the 12th house, I literally step into the spirit plane. That's where I connect with dead relatives, spirit guides, friends who are on the other side. In the second house, we are absolutely talking about money. If I'm led outside to the woods outside my house, that tells me I need to go long. And so the person I'm reading needs to go long. They need to get out of their comfort zone. And so when I do my free full moon ceremony every month with between 40 and 80 people, I read everybody, give them a mantra. And with some people, I just am led to the house involved. It's just my way of doing it. And this is available to anybody who studies
well,
astrology.
sure. I just find that fascinating, though, because there's so many times, when I used to have dreams about my clients before they would come to me, and it would be often shown to me that there was a specific house that they needed to work with. And that to me is exactly what you're doing, only I'm waiting for a dream perhaps that's going to come, but not necessarily for every client. And you're purposefully walking or tuning into the place that they need to hear the most about.
That's true. And that's when the healing takes place, when two or more are gathered, meaning when two or more people are vibrating at the same level, and just knowing that they're not crazy. I'm validating them. The healing takes place. But it's more than that too. There's something, I know what it is. When I made up my mind that I was coming from love, that I was here to serve, that I was here to give, there's something that comes out of me. It's an intangible something that people identify with, that they connect with, which allows me to do whatever I can for them. And I've seen things without walking a zodiac. I've seen things in people in Publix or, Kroger. And I think, man, if I could just touch them. And sometimes I do, I'll brush against them and say, oh, excuse me, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because they need love. And that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah, that's fascinating too. So we have a couple of people in here. I just want to check if you're listening to us and I can see you, which I can see Roseanne, I can see Tina, and I can see Debbie. I can't see the rest of you because you're probably in Facebook, and I have to keep that closed or it reverberates the sound. If any of you have any questions, please type it in the chat, or I can bring you in live if you're willing to be seen and heard, that you want to ask Maxine. And while I'm waiting for them to respond, if they have any questions for you, why don't you tell us about the most fun thing that I think you do, or at least in my estimation, and that is your monthly Trumpology report on your YouTube channel. What possessed you to do this, and tell us about it.
Trump possessed me to do this. I always do political forecasts on the candidates, and I use what's called a diurnal chart. And most astrologers have no idea what that is.
I know, I'm like,
I was taught to, I'll share it with you because there's a little math involved. I learned this in 1969. And when I looked at his chart the first time, and I said, he doesn't have the significators of a president. When I did past presidents like Obama, he had his nodes, the natal transiting or progressed, I forget which ones, on the angles. So this was a karmic situation. 10th house had to be involved because he's president. Trump had Mars on the ascendant. I said, no way, this is a me chart. And I said, no.
Mars on the ascendant, that's exactly what I just pictured. Me. It's all about me.
And so, and then when I realized, wait a second, as time went by, he is going to be president. I said, I am going to follow him because he's an anomaly. Mm-hmm. And so every month I do a forecast on him. We have his exact birth time and the United States chart using the Gemini ascendant chart. And I do it at the end of one month for the beginning of the following month. I've compared his chart to I've done solar charts on most of his cabinet. I call it the revolving door cabinet because those people are gone. I've done one on Stormy. And I compared her chart to his. I'm going to do Karen McDougal, and I'm sure there will be many more that surface that I'll be able to do.
There is already a third one, and I can't think of what her name was.
Right, she was on the Apprentice, but that's in addition to the 12 or 13 who surfaced earlier. And I'm not going to do all of their charts, but we get the picture. So anyhow, I realized. Now, I got to tell you something about his chart that a lot of people don't realize. He's got a Leo ascendant. It's 29 degrees, 58 minutes of Leo. That means 2 more minutes and he'd have a Virgo ascendant, which explains, I think, his insecurity, which explains so much. It's the last hurrah, 29 degrees, 58 minutes of Leo, the last hurrah, and the ruler of his ascendant, Leo, is in his 10th house. And so that explains so much. But his whole first house is Virgo. And you can ask any Virgo ascendant or Virgo sun. They work so diligently to be perfect, and the slightest criticism just tears them up.
Yeah, he has very thin skin.
Very thin skin. Leos don't.
Yeah.
And Leos can be magnanimous.
But he's also a fellow Gemini.
I know it.
Which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, he could go so far if he wasn't so me oriented.
And I think this is so karmic. You know, he's got Pluto and Mars in the 12th house. Mars is close to his ascendant, and that's what drives him. Mars is in late Leo, and it's sitting in his 12th house, which says he fights behind the scenes. But of course, it's conjunct his ascendant, and he lives to fight. But this is karmic, of course.
Of course it is. So I have some questions for you. Debbie, I'm going to unmute you, Debbie. Hello, Debbie. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you, honey?
I'm good. Are you okay if I turn on your camera?
Yeah, I don't care. You know how I look in the morning.
I love you, Debbie. There she is. Debbie. So yes. There's Maxine for you, and I see your hand is up. So what question do you have for Maxine?
I've just been wanting to know when, I'd love to think, I haven't thought of any personal questions, just want to know when is some of this craziness that has been going on with myself, and it seems like everyone around me, when is some of this going to like chill a little bit? I mean, I know that there's ups and downs in life, but it just seems like there's just been months and years of total bizarreness lately. You know, just everybody I know has been going through so many things.
That's a very good question. It's a little too broad to answer personally, but what I have seen, Debbie, and felt and experienced is because, now this is not true necessarily of everyone in the United States, but the situation that we have, the reality show that we have, has been getting more and more unbelievable. We are inured. We are numbed by everything that has happened. It is so unthinkable. It is so unbelievable. And we are at the brink of war very often with some of the things that are tweeted back and forth. I think that the fact that things are still not resolved governmentally for the people is it makes people sick. I'm looking forward to the midterms because I feel that that is a time when people can step forward, they can do something about it. I think what's happened is that many people have re-accepted and fallen back into the victim role. And when you're a victim, you feel powerless. And one of the things I came here to do, especially with my Take Back Your Life class, is help empower people to empower themselves. So I feel that I did a video on this on my YouTube channel saying, if you didn't vote last time, because a lot of people didn't vote.
Oh, I did.
You need to get out there and vote. That's number one. Number two, if you've been thinking of running for office, consider it.
Debbie, that would be awesome.
I don't know what I would run for, though.
You know what I'm saying, Debbie? That it's time to put your money where your mouth is, all of us. There are, now remember, I remember the day after Trump's inauguration, we had millions of women march all over the world with pink pussy hats. That spoke very, very loudly. And I feel that because we feel so unempowered, so frustrated. I'm only grateful I don't live in Puerto Rico. Those poor people have put up with stuff that of course, we create our own reality.
Right.
And please. So I feel that things, and I'm not even speaking astrologically, I'm talking just human nature. The mere fact that we have the power to cast a vote that can make a difference in November. And we will start seeing this in the summer when people start throwing their hats in the ring. Remember, Mars is going to be retrograde from June 27th to August 28th. In the middle of that, we've got 3 eclipses. So we're getting geared up. So I'm going to step out on a limb and say things are going to start moving forward. The attitude is going to change by the summertime. When I do my Trumpology report every single month, I keep looking at things that could have in past times indicated a change, and nothing's happened.
And that's frustrating. I got to tell you, because I've seen that same thing over and over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's building to a head. And it seems like every single thing is a tipping point, and the powers that be, the people who want to stay in office are saying what they need to say and doing what they need to do to maintain their office. That's why I'm saying midterms. Mm-hmm. Midterms. That's my new word. I want a baseball cap that says midterms, because that is when we can step forward. So. And I'll look ahead.
People step forward now, though, with the Me Too movement, these 3 women that, and I don't like bashing Trump, but I think he stands as a perfect model of showing people how to take back their power, right? These women who, I don't know what possessed them to make agreements that they would keep silent. But there's this really interesting dynamic, I think, of people taking back their power. And perhaps, Debbie, to answer your question a little bit about some of the crazy things that are happening to all of us as individuals, because some people's lives right now are a mess, is that it's encouraging us to take back the power where we've given it away, where we've let it go. Taking back and not allowing yourself to be the victim, perhaps. You remember 28 degrees Chiron in Pisces. Let go of the victim and become your whole bright, shiny self, and move forward fearlessly. Ooh, I like that. So, there's a lot to everything that's going on. And I think the outer world just sometimes if we get caught up in that outer world, it stops us from really doing the work that we need to do personally. So I try not to get caught up in it. It's really hard some days. Especially a day of a Twitter storm that he, gets us into.
Yeah, I've had some stuff going on lately that I haven't even watched the news for like 2 weeks. It's just been.
Debbie needs a huge hug.
Tough, I couldn't handle any outside energy on top of it. I have one more question. Could you please? I totally missed what your website is, because I am interested in that class.
It's MaxineTaylor.com, Debbie. I just put my name up there because I knew I could remember it. So,
all right. You live in Atlanta, and I live in Lynn Haven, Florida. So I hope I get to meet you someday.
Possibly so.
Right.
I hope so too.
Thanks, Debbie, so much.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. I'm going to leave you on so you can listen. I have another question from Tina. Can you offer guidance here on how to look at your path in the chart? Is it North Node or that in aspect with other things? I know it's not a full reading, just a few things we can be looking for.
Oh, I'd be happy to. Let me talk about the nodes first. Every planet has a north node and a south node. So for goodness sake, I put all my nodes in one time and it was so crowded, there was no room for lunch. The north node is your area of greatest success. The south node is that area that you've mastered in past lives and you're instinctively drawn to. Now, a lot of I am a very positive astrologer. I'll tell you what's right with you, not what's wrong with you. And the astrology books I read are horribly negative because they're written by people who are either simply copying old-timey astrology interpretations or they themselves are negative. The north node is the dragon's head. The south node is the dragon's tail. Their head and tail are the same dragon. You got to use the head and the tail. Balance both of them. So you're instinctively drawn to the south node. In my own chart, I have the south node in the 4th house. If I don't get out of the house once a day, I go stir crazy. My north node is in my 10th house, which is great. And I love my career and it has brought me fame, recognition, and the ability to help other people. But I have to be home too. I used to have an office in Buckhead, which is a very elegant district, business district. That was my home away from home. Now, your birth chart is the map of your lifetime, this time of this incarnation. So don't limit yourself to the nodes. In order for you to fulfill your purpose while you're here, you want to express your chart, everything, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, vertex, north node, south node. Those of you who use asteroids, throw those in too. For many years, I used heliocentric astrology with it. Crowded chart, but very interesting. For you. Now, you have a choice, and I'm going to throw something out here that's very controversial. You may say, well, I can't do that because I have a Mars-Saturn square. Squares are not negative. They're negative if you allow them to be. Squares are a kick in the butt.
That's a great way to look at it.
Do it. So, I wrote a book called A Revelation, the New Astrology. It sold 1 copy. I rewrote astrology from the positive. Nobody was interested. It's in my book, The Stargazer.
I am.
Well, it's in my book, The Stargazer's Motherlode, and I'll get you a copy of that. This is your game plan for this incarnation. It is not forever. It's for now. And remember that every single lifetime that you ever lived or ever will live is going on right now because we don't live in linear time.
Correct.
On the spirit plane. And so whatever you change here, you change elsewhere. Think of it as Disneyland. Hey, let's go to planet Earth. Let's see. What shall my adventure be? 1 from column A, 2 from column B. Do I want Diet Coke, regular Coke? Okay, Okay, ready? Everybody coming with me? Let's get born. 1, 2, 3. Boom. There's your karmic group. And for you to live your greatest life is to use your chart on its highest and best level. That is what propelled me to create Take Back Your Life.
Awesome. And she has one last question here. I hope that helped Tina, because I got a lot from that. She wants to know, are we closing the cycle started by Saturn in Scorpio that started in 2012? Maybe Jupiter moving through Scorpio is pushing us towards something different.
You know, I take each planet individually. So I really can't answer it from the standpoint of one planet picking up where another left off. Although I understand what you're saying. Saturn is restriction, Jupiter is expansion. I adore Jupiter, but remember, Jupiter is a lot of. And what follows the word of?
A lot of bullshit. Or a lot of wonderful stuff.
And this is the U2 movement, because everything that is hidden and secret and sexual is now surfacing. So I tend to, you know what I'm going to say, Tina? There are no rules, honey. The rules that I studied, I've thrown away. When I teach astrology, I teach it one-on-one to people. I don't teach in classes. I use your chart, your husband's chart, your kids' charts, because you're not interested in King George IV. You're interested in your family's charts. And when I teach new people, they'll say, well, can I do this? Can I do that? And sometimes it's news to me. And I think, hell yeah, you can, because there are no rules. Astrology is a magical, mystical science. Many years ago, I discovered the progressed chart as a standalone natal chart. And I thought I was so brilliant discovering this. And I took aspect from transits to it. And I thought, oh, I am so smart. And then I found out that there were a lot of other astrologers who had done the same thing. Whatever you want to do works. Yeah. Because astrology works. Now, the diurnal chart is my passion. And it's a great rectification tool. And that book also is in the Stargazer's Motherlode. And you can't buy that on Amazon because I print that up at Office Depot on demand. I mean, you know, I run a really large organization here. I take the manuscript, take it to Home Depot, they print it up. So whatever works for you, darling girl, is the truth. You make your own rules. Many years ago, I was speaking at an AFA convention, American Federation of Astrologers, and there were about 200 people in the audience. And my title of my talk was, "You Can Rise Above Your Birth Chart."
Perfect.
I'm telling you, it was like the Red Sea parted, and one side of the room was ready to stone me, and the other side was ready to build an altar under me. And I thought, ooh, I've always been ahead of my time. So, you know, typical Gemini, I blurted out something people didn't want to hear, and some of them may still be angry at me. By progression, by solar arc, your chart moves forward. It ain't the same as when you were a little girl. And you can progress, you can do, move the cusps forward, the angles, angular, succedent, and cadent houses. When they hit a conjunction, conjunctions tell the tale. That's when that part of the chart lights up. By progression, when Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto move out of the natal houses, you have worked through the lessons in that area of life. So, darling Tina, the answer to your question is yes.
Awesome. By the way, she says, super helpful. Thanks. I'm learning how to break rules. Not easy for a recovering perfectionist. I love that term.
I love that too. And I always say to people, if you want perfect, you don't want me. And Sarah Blakely, who is the founder of Spanx, I saw a beautiful video that she did a while back saying that when she was a little girl, she and her brothers would sit at the dining room table for dinner, and her father would ask them, what mistakes have you made today? And she said, we better have had one ready to tell him, because he said, it's only from your mistakes that you grow, that you learn. We were taught, if you are less than perfect, you're not good enough.
Right.
It was when I saw her video that I realized it's okay to make a mistake.
Throw the books.
Yeah.
Be authentic. That's why, you know, by the way, I do human design astrology, and that's one of the things I really like about it, because it gives us that leeway, that energetic leeway that we can have to express the authentic person that's within us. And it's hard to pick that out in astrology because it's a little bit mechanical. It's not so, I mean, sure, the planets are energy and that kind of thing, and their movement suggests energy, but there's a more mechanical truth there that was born with that than there is an energetic truth that there is in human design. So now I'm sort of weaving those two things together to create a coherent story for people about who they are and what their potential is. So I love that.
Are you writing a book on that? Are you doing anything on that to put it out there? Punched a button, huh?
I talk to people all the time about it. I have not written a book. I've written many, actually. I just haven't done anything with them. But
you know, when you're ready, and I can introduce, I can help you do that, and I would be delighted to help you promote it, because
Thank you.
I think what you do is marvelous.
So, you know, what I told you was going to be 30 minutes has now almost become an hour. I think, and I knew this would happen because we would get into a thing and we would just be happy about it and we wouldn't want to necessarily call it quits. But I want to honor our time and our listeners and viewers' time. Thank you so much, Maxine, from my heart to yours, for being here this morning. Again, Maxine's website is easily remembered. It's her name, MaxineTaylor.com. I will post that later on the Facebook page so you guys can catch up with her. Her YouTube channel is Maxine Astrologer, right? Maxine Taylor Astrologer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've played with your videos. They're awesome. The Trumpology report makes me laugh. And also go, oh, how accurate, because like I'm watching this now from retrospect and going, wow, that's crazy. So we look forward. Now you do that at the first of the month, is it?
I'll be doing the April Trumpology report next week. So I do it at the end of the prior month. And one month I was a little late getting it on there. And I got notes from, messages from people.
Where's my Trumpology?
Exactly. So it's there by the first of the month.
Awesome. So looking forward to that coming up soon. So please engage with Maxine. Go check her information out. I know I have the magic book that I still have to read. Somehow I had a grandbaby born this week, was in Seattle with a granddaughter, had a daughter in the hospital this week, so I have not had the time to read a book, but I will get to that. And I hope to have you on again, and we'll have a discussion about whatever astrology is tweaking us at the moment. But thank you so much. And thank you all for tuning in this morning. Thank you, Debbie and Tina, for your wonderful questions. And I hope everybody has a stellar day. Love to you all. Bye for now. Yay, we did it.
Oh, honey, you're awesome.